Welcome back, everyone, to Part 2 of our exploration of the Book of Jasher, Chapter 1. Before we dive back in, a quick reminder. We're exploring this ancient text for its historical and narrative value. This is not about promoting conspiracy theories, but about understanding a different perspective on stories we might think we know. So, let's pick up where we left off. In our last video, we saw Cain and Abel prepare their offerings to the Lord. Now, we see the aftermath. Verse 16 tells us, "And unto Cain and his offering the Lord did not turn, and he did not incline to it, for he had brought from the inferior fruit of the ground before the Lord." This rejection sparked a deep jealousy in Cain against his brother Abel, and from that moment he started looking for a reason, a pretext, to harm him. Sometime after this, Cain and Abel went out to the field to do their work. Cain was tilling his ground, and Abel was tending his flock. The tension that began at the altar was about to escalate. The book says Abel's flock wandered over a part of the field that Cain had just plowed. This simple act, likely an accident, was the spark Cain was waiting for. It sorely grieved him. Fueled by anger, Cain confronted his brother. He said, "What is there between me and thee, that thou comest to dwell and bring thy flock to feed in my land?" It's a classic territorial dispute, but layered with the festering jealousy from the rejected offering. Cain is essentially saying, "Get off my property." But Abel doesn't just back down. He counters with a sharp and insightful response. He asks Cain, "What is there between me and thee, that thou shalt eat the flesh of my flock, and clothe thyself with their wool?" Abel is pointing out the hypocrisy. Cain benefits from Abel's labor, the very flock he despises, yet he claims sole ownership of the land. Abel then doubles down. He tells Cain, "And now therefore put off the wool of my sheep with which thou hast clothed thyself, and recompense me for their fruit and flesh which thou hast eaten. And when thou shalt have done this, I will then go from thy land as thou hast said." This is a powerful challenge. Abel is demanding restitution. He's saying, if you want to talk about what belongs to whom, let's settle all our accounts. Pay me back for the food you've eaten and the clothes you wear from my flock, and then I'll leave your land. Cain is left speechless by this logic. He can't argue the point, so his frustration turns to a dark thought. He says to Abel, "Surely if I slay thee this day, who will require thy blood from me?" This is a chilling moment. Cain isn't just angry anymore. He's contemplating the ultimate crime, believing he can get away with it because there are no other humans to enforce justice. Who would be the witness? Who would be the judge? Abel's response is profound and full of faith. He tells Cain, "Surely God who has made us in the earth, he will avenge my cause, and he will require my blood from thee, shouldst thou slay me." Abel understands a higher law. He continues, "For the Lord is the judge and arbiter, and it is he who will requite man according to his evil." Even at the dawn of humanity, there is this innate understanding of divine justice that actions have consequences beyond what man can see or enforce. Abel finishes his warning saying, "And now, if thou shouldst slay me here, surely God knoweth thy secret views, and will judge thee for the evil which thou didst declare to do unto me this day." He's telling Cain, "You can't hide this. God sees your heart. He knows your intent." But Cain wasn't moved by this appeal to divine justice. In fact, Jasher says that when Cain heard these words, his anger was kindled even more. It seems Abel's declaration of God's judgment was the final trigger. The narrative then describes the terrible act. "And Cain hastened and rose up, and took the iron part of his plowing instrument, with which he suddenly smote his brother, and he slew him." Jasher provides a specific detail not found in Genesis. The weapon was the metal part of his plow, a tool of cultivation turned into an instrument of destruction. The verse ends with a stark image. "And Cain spilt the blood of his brother Abel upon the earth, and the blood of Abel streamed upon the earth before the flock." Immediately after, a wave of regret washes over Cain. The text says he repented having slain his brother, and he was sadly grieved, and he wept over him, and it vexed him exceedingly. The heat of his anger cooled, leaving only the cold reality of his actions. This detail adds a layer of human complexity to Cain's character. He wasn't just a monster, but a man who gave in to his worst impulses and immediately felt the crushing weight of his sin. Lost and grieving, Cain then tries to hide his crime. He digs a hole in the field, puts Abel's body inside, and covers it with dust. This is the first grave, a desperate attempt to conceal his deed, not just from others, but perhaps from himself and from God. Of course, nothing is hidden from the Lord. God appears to Cain and asks the now famous question, "Where is Abel thy brother that was with thee?" Cain's response is one of deflection and denial. "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" He lies directly to God, compounding his sin. The Lord's response is powerful. "What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground, where thou hast slain him." God then exposes Cain's inner thoughts, saying, "For thou hast slain thy brother, and hast dissembled before me, and didst imagine in thy heart that I saw thee not, nor knew all thy actions." God makes it clear, your secret sin is known. God then explains why Cain did it. "But thou didst this thing, and didst slay thy brother for naught, and because he spoke rightly to thee." The murder wasn't for a valid reason. It was because Cain couldn't handle being wrong and couldn't stand that his brother spoke the truth. And so, the curse is pronounced. "And now, therefore, cursed be thou from the ground which opened its mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand, and wherein thou didst bury him." The curse has specific terms. "And it shall be when thou shalt till it shall no more give thee its strength as in the beginning, for thorns and thistles shall the ground produce, and thou shalt be moving and wandering in the earth until the day of thy death." His livelihood is cursed. The very ground he fought over will now fight against him, and he is condemned to a life of restlessness and exile. And so, Cain leaves the presence of the Lord. He becomes a wanderer, heading to the land toward the east of Eden with his family. There, the narrative tells us Cain knew his wife, and she gave birth to a son. He named him Enoch. Jasher adds a fascinating note here, saying Cain named him Enoch because, in that time, the Lord began to give him rest and quiet in the earth. This suggests that the birth of his son marked a turning point. Cain's wandering began to cease. In fact, the text says that at that time, Cain began to build a city, which he also named Enoch, after his son. Jasher clarifies, "For in those days the Lord had given him rest upon the earth, and he did not move about and wander as in the beginning." It seems that through family and the act of building a community, Cain found a measure of stability, a reprieve from the curse of wandering. The chapter then concludes with a brief genealogy. "And Irad was born to Enoch, and Irad begat Metujael, and Metujael begat Methusael." And with that, the first chapter of the book of Jasher comes to an end. What an incredibly detailed and dramatic account. It fills in so many of the gaps left in the Genesis narrative, giving us motivations, dialogue, and the emotional aftermath of this foundational tragedy. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Chapter 1. If you found this as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. We have channels on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, and TikTok where we explore ancient texts just like this. We'll see you in the next video as we dive into Chapter 2. Thanks for watching.